Well, if you go to the Missouri Accountability Portal, I think this is probably one of the best models in the country. You can go and you can click on any line item in the budget, and you can continue to go down until you get to the check that was written for every expense in that state budget. Interestingly, and anybody can do this, it's a very easy website, it's the Missouri Accountability Portal. I think that's where we need to head in the state of Colorado. Interestingly, one of the things that they discovered is that by applying this level of focus to individual checks that had gone out, they found out that they had spent $15,000 at a bra shop over 6 years in Anna's bra shop, in case you're wondering.
Wait. How much?
15,000 over 6 years.
Were these the Wonder Bras, or were these push-up bras?
It was for professional services.
Professional. Well,
but you know what? Actually, if you dig a little deeper into that, turns out, I was reading up on that because everybody's going, oh my gosh, they spent $15,000 at a bra shop. Turns out that some of that was for undergarments for inmates. You have to clothe inmates. So, you know, I mean, again, if you it's not necessarily to say that every expenditure is bad or wrong. Sometimes it is perfectly legitimate.
But the key is every expenditure is an open record and available to all members, all citizens in Colorado. And I think why there might be some resistance to this is we do have a state auditor, and there's a city auditor, and there's people who keep an eye on this. But potentially, when we make it easy for people, if they're sitting in their bathrobe on a Saturday morning to start going through the check register, we end up having 4.5 million auditors potentially. And I think that's what, but this idea of putting it online, is this a partisan issue? Let's start over here. And right now, we've had a lot of people on both sides of the aisle say, I want transparency. But what transparency is might be different. Might be putting budget numbers online. Really, what I'm looking for is the actual checks. I'd like to see the contracts that fulfill those checks. I want to see it all. Is this a partisan issue?
Shouldn't be, but it has been. I can tell you this: over the fall, several of us legislators took a statewide road trip, and we were trying to get the message out that the governor ought to slow.
Junket.
I was with Frank McNulty and Cory Gardner in a small RV. It was no junket, I can assure you, and it was paid for on our own money.
And it went to every bra state in eastern Colorado.
We made a loop around the state supporting our candidates, and we were stressing the importance of saving more, not spending more in light of this economic downturn. One of the things that we asked people along the way is, what do you think of this idea of putting the state checkbook online? And everybody uniformly loved this. Well, one of the Democrats that we came across, a prominent member of the Joint Budget Committee, former member of the Joint Budget Committee, bristled, said, well, all those things, all those documents are online. Well, the fact of the matter is, to your point, yes, they are online, and the state auditor knows all about those documents, certainly, but a citizen can't actually access those things. There's no real functional way for those to be accessed. And secondly, I'll tell you this, we ran this bill 2 years ago. Representative Don Marostica, he's going to be my House sponsor. In fact, we'll probably start in the House again. He ran this bill, the Colorado Taxpayer Transparency Act, put the budget online 2 years ago, died in committee on a 7-4 party line vote. So it shouldn't be a partisan issue, though it has been.
Well, you put together a couple clips I want to get to here in a second. Is this a partisan issue?
It has been, I guess, in Colorado. And there's one thing I want to get to real quick. If that information is already online, then it should be really easy to do. We should just be able to make it accessible. So I'm glad to know that it's already there. So all we have to do is open up the portal, and taxpayers will have access to it.
Put some system to make it searchable so the rest of us can look at it.
Absolutely. So I'm thrilled to know that.
Well, the point is you have to have a lot of toner if you're going to print out the 600 pages of the budget. That's what I'm getting at.
But in other states, this is not. It has been signed into law by Democrats, by Republicans. Kathleen Sebelius, the Democratic governor of the state of Kansas, signed it into law in her state. They have a great website. I would say it is second to Missouri's, because I am, like Mike Kopp, I am a huge fan of Missouri's. It has been signed into law by her. Texas, it was run by a bipartisan group of legislators put that together. Barack Obama, huge supporter of transparency. Ralph Nader, a huge supporter of transparency. And the argument is good on both sides. The right often wants to look at it as a watchdog. The left will look at it as a watchdog as well, saying, you know what? Once people see that we are not investing enough in transportation, or maybe in people with disabilities, whatever it is, they'll be able to better make their case and their argument. This is not a partisan issue. Has been in Colorado, but overall it is not.
So let's go to a couple of these clips. What are we going to watch?
We're going to watch Barack Obama advocating for transparency. He was the sponsor. He was the primary sponsor of transparency in the United States. He put the federal government's checkbook online in a searchable format. And then a couple of years later, when they came back and looked at it and said it needs to be tweaked, he sponsored the legislation again. The other one is Mark Strama, Democratic legislator out of the state of Texas. He talks about the bipartisan coalition he put together to get transparency in the state of Texas.
All right, why don't we go to this right now? Let's take a look at what our president-elect seems to think about transparency.
As president, I'm going to change that. We will put government data online in universally accessible formats. I'll let citizens track federal grants, contracts, earmarks, and lobbying contracts. I'll let you participate in government forums, ask questions in real time, offer suggestions that will be reviewed before decisions are made, and let you comment on legislation before it is signed. And to ensure that every government agency is meeting 21st century standards, I will appoint the nation's first Chief Technology Officer to coordinate and make certain that we are always at the forefront of technology and that we are incorporating it into every decision that we make.
Hi, I'm Mark Strama. I'm a state representative from here in Austin, Texas, and I was the lead author of the Transparency Bill here in the Texas House last session, along with Representative Brian Hughes, Corbin Van Arsdale, Ken Paxton, and Juan Garcia. 2 Democrats, 3 Republicans, coming together on what I think is the quintessential bipartisan bill. We all agree that the democratic process works best when the public can see what we're doing with their tax dollars and make sure we're spending their money wisely. The Transparency Bill enables them to do that by putting all government spending online, available to the public. And the great thing about the internet is that it's a two-way communication street. So we can improve upon this in the future as the comptroller who administers the website receives input from the public about how she can make the website more intuitive and more accessible to them and provide the public access to the information they need. The democratic process works best when the public has access to the information they need to hold us accountable for how they spend their tax dollars or on any other issue. That's why I believe this transparency bill is so important and was such an accomplishment for us last session.
All right, let me put it this way. The last thing I want to do is agree with Barack Obama on just about anything, and even worse, agree with a Texan. So this comes from a sister organization that's been working on this issue out in Texas. Does it bother you that our president-elect thinks this is a good idea as well?
No. I think what bothers me is that anybody elected to office would try and keep the public from being able to readily access, especially in this especially in this information age. Look over our shoulder and see what we're up to. It's their money. We're spending their money, and it does bug me that some people bristle at that.
The great story that I heard from Texas was when this went to the House floor. At first, it failed on a voice vote, but when someone called for a roll call vote, it passed unanimously.
I can see that.
Nobody wanted to come out on this once it got to the floor and their name was on it. All right, you know those dynamics better than I do. Why is it that those legislators really didn't want it, but when their name was pushed on it, they voted for it without one single vote against it?